Hello and welcome. I'm Simon from Quantis, and in the next half an hour, we'll jointly explore the added value of water footprinting of products, services, and companies. We will look at why do companies care about water, how they typically manage it, and where does water footprinting fit in. We'll also use a series of illustrative examples from the Agua Nos project, and Diana from SDC will tell us what's it all about. Over to you, Diana.
Hello to everyone. My name is Diana Rojas. I work with the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation with its global program Water, and we are really glad to share with you this video on water footprinting as a tool to standardize the assessment of water-related impacts from the production processes. We aim at mobilizing the private sector to advance on water stewardship. Here, we will share details on the implementation of the water footprint assessment based on the international standard ISO 14046. Hands-on experiences and examples developed with partner companies are included. These examples come from SDC's initiative called Agua Nos, implemented in Latin America. Sustainable Development Goals Framework, the SDG 6, establishes a clear set of targets related to the production processes, in particular, wastewater treatment to improve water quality and water use efficiency. Every drop counts. It is also a clear call to the private sector to engage in water resource management in the water basin. The goal is to contribute to strengthen water governance as part of the multiple but key stakeholders that need to act jointly in order to assure healthy ecosystems, access to water and sanitation, and to improve water use among sectors. In that framework, the Global Water Program of SDC has developed a Agua Nos initiative, also known as Swiss Agua America Latina, in order to promote corporate water stewardship in the region. Thus, we aim at applying the ISO 14046 for the assessment of the water footprint in the production processes in close relation with the private sector, for them to reduce their water impacts, but also to engage their value chain in the process. Besides, collective actions are implemented with local institutions and community-based organizations. The goal is to include integrated water management in the business strategies, as well as to promote more sustainable consumption habits. Up to 2020, more than 51 case studies have been developed in 5 Latin American countries, which are Colombia, Mexico, Peru, Chile, and Brazil. In each country, working along with key institutional and consulting partners. You will find the fact sheets of the results per company in the Water Action Hub, which is the online platform of the United Nations Global Compact. Thank you for listening, and I now give the floor to Quantis. I really hope this video is useful to your work.
Thanks a lot, Diana, for that overview about that exciting and important initiative of supporting the private sector in Latin America on advancing on their corporate water stewardship journey. Now let's get started by looking at why do companies care about water. According to the CDP, companies report financial impacts of more than $14 billion every year, which are related to water. And it's not about future risks and prognostics, it's really happening today. And the key drivers are physical water risks, such as lack of water or too much water due to extreme weather events, which will become more severe even in the years to come, which can have a direct impact on the operational cost and also disturb supply chains. Now the issue is that many companies do not even know how much water they extract, consume and release. And that's mainly related to the fact that water is typically a cheap resource, an undervalued resource compared to other costs such as energy or other raw materials. However, water could become very expensive due to physical, regulatory and reputational risk. And so there is a big value for companies to understand the water risks and impact along the whole value chain and to manage them properly. Let's quickly look at how companies are currently managing water and how one can progress on the corporate water stewardship journey. Currently, most companies focus on legal compliance and implement actions in their own operation, which includes water efficiency, wash, or improved water treatment in order to achieve excellence in water management of that direct operations. Even though the own house might be neat and clean, a company still depends on a functioning value chain and has also responsibility over it. Just to give a few examples, a drought does not only affect local water availability but also hydropower production. And GM in Brazil faced a huge increase in production cost, which is indirectly linked to energy prices. On the other hand side, the main water-related impacts of pesticide might not happen at the production site, but at the use stage during application in the field. Syngenta, for instance, paid hundreds of millions of US dollars for groundwater contamination that affected close to 1,000 communities. So indeed, companies are responsible beyond their own operation, and it's key for them to understand and mitigate water risks and impacts along the whole value chain. And this needs to be done in close collaboration with the supply chain stakeholder and is especially relevant for the agricultural sector, but also for any other sector which has high environmental impacts upstreams and downstreams in their value chains. Lastly, companies are not isolated but part of many watershed actors. Even if companies achieve excellence in managing the water resource at their own operation, they will be still affected by the neighboring surrounding them. Water is a shared resource, and only with watershed collaboration a sustainable water management can be achieved on the long run. That's why it's important to take an extra step and go beyond the factory gate and collaborate on a watershed level. Let's continue with looking at where does water footprinting fit in and how can it support a sustainable water management. The water footprint assessment method is standardized by ISO 14046, which provides the general principles and requirements. It was published in 2014 and it counted with inputs from more than 100 participants around the globe and was also strongly supported by the SDC. One could calculate the water footprint of any product, any company, service, project, region, etc. There are virtually no boundaries to that. And one of the main characteristics is that it's life cycle based. So it starts with the raw material extraction, manufacturing, distribution, use, and hopefully by closing the loop. So this ensures that also the invisible or indirect water consumption and pollution is captured and helps to avoid shifting the burden. Another key characteristic is that it considers the impacts related to quantity and quality of water. So it includes impacts related to water consumption, scarcity, as well as water pollution. Water footprint is a tool that can be used in context of other footprints, such as the carbon footprint, which is basically the evaluation of the greenhouse gas emissions and their global warming potential. The water footprint is the sum of the impacts related to water, and it's typically more than just a single indicator. If also other safeguards such as ecosystems, biodiversity, human health, etc. are considered, we can speak about environmental footprint or life cycle assessment. But what kind of indicators are used in a water footprint study? To give a few examples, for instance, the amount of water used for irrigation itself is not yet a water footprint study, since the impact strongly depends on the local water availability. So water consumption paired with water scarcity, that's getting a water footprint metric. As far as water pollution is concerned, many different water-related impacts can be quantified, such as ecotoxicity, eutrophication, or acid rain, for instance. This also makes it clear that if we talk about water footprint, a set of different indicators are used to capture the different water-related impacts. That is in contrast to the carbon footprint, for which typically one indicator is used with the unit CO2 equivalents. So now that we know a bit better what water footprinting is, let's look at the superpowers of the tool. So imagine that you have different production sites located at many different locations, and water footprinting can help you identify which ones have higher physical water risks in order to prioritize actions. Here, for instance, an example from Brazil where we mapped 26 factories, and you can see here in blue the water consumption of the different production site, and on the left the ones which consume high amounts of water. However, high amounts of water consumed in areas where there is abundant water available, it's not such an issue in contrast to places with high water scarcity. And so we weighted the water consumption with the information about the water stress to identify the top sites which call for immediate actions. So for instance, number 23, which is one of the lowest water consuming factories, is located in a top scarcity area and therefore should be prioritized. Another superpower of water footprinting is that it helps you identify hotspots along the whole value chain. And let's illustrate that with a cup of coffee. So I ask you, what's the water footprint of drinking a cup of coffee made in Colombia? And so we worked with the key players along the whole value chain, including the Colombian Coffee Federation, leading producers and manufacturers, in order to map out where are the hotspots. And if we look at water pollution of drinking a cup of Colombian coffee, in that case the eutrophication impact, it is clearly linked to the use of fertilizer application and emission during crop growth, indicated in red here, and also during post-harvest processing and the related water treatment system. On the other hand side, the coffee cultivation in Colombia is mainly rain-fed, and cultivation areas are located typically in areas with little water stress. So the water consumption during drinking the coffee and also washing the cup of coffee become more relevant, here indicated in blue. And obviously the picture might be completely different if we look at other coffee producing areas. Obviously there are many more superpowers, but in a nutshell, water footprinting provides you with important information on where the main impacts for different operation sites and also along the value chain are located. It makes the indirect footprint visible and is key to move from assumption-based decision-making to informed decision-making based on strong metrics. It's however not a tool, obviously, to answer all the questions, and it's very complementary to tools such as water risk tools or tools to identify shared water challenges on a watershed level. So once the key challenges and hotspots are identified and understood, relevant targets can be set. Today, many companies define their water targets on increasing internal efficiencies, for instance, reducing 20% the water use in manufacturing by 2030. And often these goals are a good starting point, but fall short and do not address necessarily the local water challenges. In some areas, for instance, access to safe drinking water or targets on water quality is more relevant than reducing the water use. And that is why context-based targets based on science and considering the local contexts and are aligned with the regional and global targets such as the SDG 6 are key. A key resource here is the published guide available on the CEO Water Mandate page, and also in the project Agua Nos we identified and used context-based water targets for companies as part of the indicator set. So once the hotspots and challenges are understood, targets are set, now it's really time to make a change and implement actions. And this can range from implementing good practices and technology in own operations, but then also engage along the value chain and take collective actions on a watershed level. Looking at implementation of good practices and technologies, many different actions specific to business can be taken, including water reuse, rainwater harvesting, drip irrigation, wash, etc., etc. And just to give one example from Fabricato, a Colombian denim producer, they invested into state-of-the-art water treatment system technology, focusing on water recirculation, color removal, which led to significant reduction of the water consumption, improvement in terms of water quality, so reduced water pollution. And it's a very nice example since it does not only lower the water footprint, but is also very beneficial cost-wise by reducing energy consumption costs. On engaging along the value chain, we can go back to our coffee example and look at Juan Valdez, a Colombian coffee chain who is working with several hundred of coffee growers on improving efficiency of the coffee farms. And among other activities, one of the key focus is to really support farmers in soil sampling and optimized fertilizing. And on one hand side, that reduces the main environmental impacts identified by the water footprinting assessment, but then on the other hand side also reduces significantly the costs. And then another example of engaging in the value chain and contributing to SDG 6. Here an example from Cold Cafe, working with more than 600 coffee growers to establish a centralized post-harvest processing plant which is more efficient than processing on a farm level. And the traditional post-harvest processing, and we have that seen before in the footprint of a cup of coffee, is significantly contributing to the water pollution footprint due to the high organic load which is discharged. And engaging with the coffee bean suppliers and jointly establishing an efficient processing plant which treats the water and composts the byproduct leads to a significant reduction of the water consumption and also the water pollution footprint, which comes with other environmental and social economic benefits. So these were just two examples. There are many, many more out there, and a lot of them are also captured and shared on the Water Action Hub platform, also related to working collectively on a watershed level. And I just encourage you to check out the platform, and there are literally water projects all over the globe on different topics, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So check it out, get inspired, share, connect, exchange, and it's really a powerful platform. Just check it out. Now, having understood the key impacts, the challenges, the risks, having set targets, implemented actions, defined an action roadmap, we also want to communicate on our advances on the water stewardship journey. and footprinting can provide valuable metrics for a credible communication to external and also internal stakeholders. If you want to become more active in water footprinting, and I hope I caught your curiosity, become an active member and join the network and the community of practice. And there is also a course on CapNet to get the free training, and you can access open source materials. Check out the webpage of Agua Nos. And besides the ISO standard, there are also other sources which are relevant in case you want to learn more about water footprinting, which is the ISO 14073, which is focusing more on providing examples. Then there is a practical guide to ISO 14046, a guide to water footprinting in Latin America. And if you're more curious about, how to calculate and how to evaluate and what indicators to use, there is a guidance from the Agua Nos project. Thanks, that was it from my side. I hope it was inspiring, and I guess the fact that you're still with us at this stage of the presentation shows that at least some parts of it were interesting and added some new content and value to you. So now I'm curious to hear what you're doing in that space, to also connect on that, to discuss on that, and also how you want to take it to the next level. In case you have any question, just feel free to reach out to me. I think here is my email. Just drop me a line and I'm really happy to exchange. Have a good one.